Welcome to Season 4 of Purposeful Empathy, a show dedicated to conversations with people from around the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. Today's episode is brought to you by Grand Huron International, an on-demand coaching provider for individuals and companies. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I'm joined by Nino Margvelashvili, who is a neuropsychologist and expert in self-regulation. She's an official trainer of the International Child Development Program, which encourages parents to practice the universal principles of positive interactions between adults and children. She's also the co-founder of Kekona, a platform to develop emotional intelligence in parents and help kids become self-aware and self-compassionate, which is based in Tbilisi, Georgia. She's worked as a one-to-one learning support specialist with kids with special needs and as a mother of 2 children herself. Welcome to the show, Nino.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really honored to be here with you, Anita.
Great. So let's jump straight in. I feel like I have a very ill-informed idea about what self-regulation is. When I hear the word self-regulation, it kind of feels like self-control or like you're kind of putting limits on your own behavior. But I don't think that's the case. So starting from sort of like the basics, what does self-regulation really mean and how does that look?
Actually, according to self-reg, based on psychophysiological understanding of self-regulation, it is how we understand the stress, how we manage the energy and tension while dealing with stress, and how we recover from it. So it's a very, neurophysiological process. Everyone self-regulates. It's the way of keeping our internal systems working in balance, in balanced state. So everything is stress, just us talking right now is a stressful situation. But for me, because I have some resources, I'm balanced, I'm calm, I slept well at night, I have the ability and I have the resources to handle the stress, and I'm more motivated, and I want to do my best right now. But for people who do not have enough resources because of excessive stress, because the mechanism is working like very hard to keep his or her own person, in balance and to survive. These people and persons, everyone, the children and youth and elders and seniors, they are actually surviving every day. So it's hard for them to behave in a way that they would love to behave, because we can see that most of us, explode right away when our kids, tell mommy, look at me, and suddenly we explode and like we're kind of, okay, what is happening with me, or something like that. Or we have problems with sleeping, I know I'm tired, but it is so hard for me to fall asleep. These are all the signs that actually our body and mind are telling us that we're overstressed, that our nervous system is working too hard to burn the energy for us every day, day to day, from one period of time to this, to another, so we can survive. So there are no more resources for us to be more empathic, to think about the world problems, to talk about, the ecological problems that exist right now, or just to share something that I have with my neighbors. It's so hard because the science tells us that when we are under excessive stress, it's hard for us to have access to the systems in our brain that are rational parts, the part that thinks logically, the part that makes conscious choices, and so we think that it was my choice, but actually our behaviors were reactive behaviors. It was caused by the by the systems that work underneath our awareness, underneath the threshold of our awareness. Yeah. So it's like, it is the signal that we are overstressed, and our bodies do their best to keep us, alive.
I remember hearing you speak, and one of the things that you shared was a bit of a metaphor for self-regulation by using our natural bodies, not our psychological minds, but saying, for example, when our homeostasis is 37.5 degrees, right? But when we go outside and it's winter, our bodies are trying to self-regulate so that we stay warm. And when we go outside and it's blistering hot, our bodies are sweating and self-regulating to keep us cool. So in the same way, self-regulation is really about trying to find that equilibrium where we can make mindful decisions, where we can behave in conscious ways, despite the fact that there's lots of stresses, just living life that's happening to us. So that's my understanding of self-regulation. It kind of is that process by which we try to get to like a better state of balance. Is that correct?
True. How we balance the different stress states that we are in, how to become stress aware, to understand what our body is telling us, where we are right now. Am I hyper aroused, or am I calm and focused, or am I, drowsy? So depending on the demand of the day or whatever, what we want to achieve, it's the most important thing is where our energy and tension levels are. If we want to go to sleep, if we want our child to go to sleep at night, and my child is hyper aroused, which I can only understand through looking at her or at her body, body language, how her eyes are looking, what kind of tone of voice, or is she using cadence, is it very, jab voice or something, or is she yelling? That tells me actually that she is hyper aroused, which doesn't mean that she has energy, because there is a lot of saying, when grandparents or, other people come and, the parent might say that, oh, my child wants to go, we have to go to sleep because my child is sleepy. And they might look at the child, and the child is running and laughing and and showing all this different stuff. And they might say, oh, she doesn't want to go to sleep. She has so much energy. But self-regulation tells you that she is not happy. Like, she's not aware 100% what she's doing. All her behaviors are hyperarousal behaviors, that she has low energy but high tension in her body, and the adrenaline and dopamine and cortisol makes her do these things. So it's the difference between, is she aware? Is she calm? Does she truly 100% understand what she's doing? Or is it her body telling us that she doesn't have much energy and her muscles are tense right now? So she needs help from us as co-regulators to calm down her nervous system, so we can smoothly let her go to sleep. Okay. So yeah, it's finding the balance and just be stress aware, when we're overstressed, and what we can do to calm our nervous system, or on the other side, to arouse our nervous system. If we are going to the exam, it's not okay if you're very, you need to be a little tensed. So it's all about regulating your states, but first you have to understand your own stresses,
So, thanks to a conversation that we had a few months ago, I started trying. So my daughter's 5, and let's say she's upset about something and crying about something. Based on conversations that I've had with you, I now manage the conversation with her a little differently, where I'm going to ask investigative kind of questions like, are you upset at mommy because I said this? And, she'll admit that she is upset. And I'll say, do you want mommy to hug you and say, I'm sorry that I said that, to calm her down. So I find that what you shared with me has worked. And now I want to just let everyone else who's listening and watching learn this. So let's talk about a specific example that most parents unfortunately have experience with, which is the meltdown, right? So, and it's happened It's happened once to me publicly, and it's just a terrible situation where your child is like having a full-blown meltdown, right? Crying, screaming, laying on the floor, wailing around, as you're in a supermarket or a shopping mall or wherever, or you want to leave a friend's house and they don't want to leave. So how can a parent help their child in that situation? And how can a parent kind of become self-aware of how they're being triggered? Like, unpack that whole circumstance and what would be useful as tools.
So according to self-reg, there are 5 steps actually, but like to start with the meltdowns, like it is the state where the nervous system is flooded, like the child is not in control of what she is doing. So most of the time parents, because it's so stressful that you see your child is kind of, suffering in a way, plus added the other stresses for the parents, like what other people might think. And like, oh my gosh, she is doing this to me, like he's thinking that the child doing this on purpose. It adds like too much stress on us as parents. So the first thing for us, like number one, is that we look at this meltdown, like we reframe the meltdown. So we ask the question ourselves, okay, so is this the misbehavior, which means that the child has consciously chosen, to behave like this, that she was in balanced state, her brain, body were in balanced state, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the, like the home base for, choices and inhibit like self-control and so on, it's working, and so she did it on purpose. Or is it the stress behavior, that she needs help, even though she yells, even though she hits us, even though she says some ugly words to us, that this is their limbic brain, the part of the brain that has taken the control, the part of the brain where strong emotions, live, have taken the control. And that's the only way our child's nervous system can show us or make us hear that they are really overstressed, that they don't have any control to let their behaviors stop right now and before that too, so that she was already overstressed. So the first thing is that we reframe the behavior, like it is a stress behavior that she's not 100% aware, that she's not in control of. It is caused by the more primitive brain systems that are under the conscious awareness. The child doesn't think about it because the brain and body tells us that they don't have much energy and resources and they need help us. So the first thing is this one, because when we reframe, our stress response changes. Because if we view the child as, this a threat to my parental role, or a threat to my image around the people, we might not think it consciously, but it is behind. We have to be, perfect, very controlling, and like we have to have disciplined child and so on. So when we reframe it, our brain actually comes down, like the limbic system comes down, because then we are aware, like we see that, oh, the child needs help. She's not fighting me. She's asking me in the most accessible way that she can right now, that she needs help, that she needs down regulation. And I am the strategy. So through reframing, your stress comes down. So when your stress comes down, your tension, you're releasing some tension, which gives your body and this system deeply in our brain that we resonate with our children and every human being because of this limbic resonance, that the child already has, that we are as resource there, that we already send the safety signals and cues to the child's limbic system without any words. you know?
Right. So just to kind of go back to the anecdote of with my daughter, right? So when she was crying and angry with me, and then I realized that maybe I need to be aware and reframe what's going on so that I can be of service to her, and then reaching out to her and saying, you know, are you upset with what mommy said? Like just those kinds of questions where I'm not being accusatory, but I'm asking her to kind of help me, guide me in terms of meeting her needs. So I can say, do you want mommy to give you a hug? Do you want to sit with mommy? Mommy needs to maybe say, I'm sorry for something. Like that's what you mean, right? So that she senses, not always a she, can be a he too, that we are working as partners in solving the situation, as opposed to like a parent is kind of getting angry about the circumstance.
Stop crying and so on, like to use the self-control lens. However, that we must be a little cautious with that, because when the child is overwhelmed, you know, like when their nervous systems are flooded, you know, using talking, you know, and asking them questions might be extra stressor for them, you know, because if we are overstressed, there is the metaphor of the, you know, the Triune Brain. I don't know if we need to explain it.
Sure, go for it.
So, it's Paul MacLean's American neuropsychologist definition or like description of the brain from the evolutionary perspective, that there are three parts, the main three parts of the brain that were evolutionary developed. So the first part, very, very primitive, which is called reptilian brain, the brainstem, which is the base of, you know, bodily feelings, you know. It was created for these singleton creatures, you know, for the reptiles. So they needed to move, they needed to digest, you know, to breathe, and they needed to survive. So this part, the reptilian brain, is the survival part of the brain, okay? And then after that, like 250 million years ago, the mammals appeared on the earth. So the next part that we were talking about, I was using the limbic system, another way they call it paleo-mammalian brain, was created to attend the needs of mammals, you know, and mammals had totally different needs. It was like caregiving. So what mammals started to do, they started to lick each other, they started to touch each other, they started to use these different voices, you know, like different things that soothes you, or different things that alarms you that there is somewhere danger. So also in this mammalian part are the memories, you know, memories, and also very strong urges that we have, that we want this donut so much. So the child yells, or the child wants to play this video game, you know, she wants it. That is also that part of the brain. And the most important thing is that in this mammalian part of the brain is the surveillance camera, so to say it like that, which is 24 hours for 7 days is operating, which tries to scan the environment outside and inside. Are we safe, or is there a threat? Okay, so, and this part of the brain doesn't talk or doesn't think with language, you know, it does not think. And so it catches the signals of safety or threats through the images, through the sounds, through the body posture, you know. And so we, like as mammals, you know, you can see when you are on the concert, or when you are on the rally, or wherever you are, where there are many people, or in the birthday party, and everyone is excited, you know, like some kids are excited, and then you all come, you know, the parents are there, but then you see that like the excitement is sweeping like a wave for everyone. Everyone becomes hyper aroused, even though the parents were sitting like that, you know, and kids were running, you know. You might notice that all the parents start to talk very loudly, you know, or you start to talk the things that actually, you know, when you come back home, like, why did I talk about this stuff? You might think, you know, all these things actually tell us that we are resonating with each other. So if someone is excited, we are all excited without them telling us that, how excited I am. Or if someone is scared, when you're in the office and someone comes in, like, he didn't say a word, but like everyone, like you might go and look to your partner, you already feel that there is some tension there. So we feel each other without words, And so then the last part is the neocortex and this prefrontal cortex, which is here, which is actually what differentiates us from other species on the earth. That is like self-control, that we can inhibit our impulses for the long-term benefit, empathy, understanding, listening to another human being, processing the information that comes. So it's all here. And for the thousands of years, people were thinking that if this part of the brain was the controlling part, it's called like the executive, this one is the one who controls, who sends, who gives the instructions and so on. But based on 30, 40 years of research, they started to research actually what is underneath this part, like how they work. And they found out that when the surveillance camera, the neuroception actually catches the threat signals, and this threat is continually signaling through the limbic system, like your breathing starts to change, or like you have some intrusive thoughts or so on. The whole show is led by the limbic system. The connection between the prefrontal cortex and the other two parts of the brain is actually cut. The blood is not going there anymore. So he is not controlling. The part of the brain that controls us when we're overstressed is the limbic system, which makes the decision. This is the master system that tells to the whole brain and body that, okay, we don't have much energy. So I know that you're thinking, you want to make good choices, but we are overstressed. There is no much energy here. There is threats. So we have to change how we respond to this threat, because we have to protect our person, So we either have to fight, or we have to flee, or we have to bond, or we have to freeze. And it's not conscious decision. And so when we are in a survival mode, or when the limbic system is leading the show, using the words is not very wise, because this part is not working. And so asking the questions and demanding from the child to give us the answers that we kind of guess intuitively what does the child need right now might add a little more stress. So we have to be cautious, okay?
So I'm glad you've done like one level up, course correcting, as I described my little anecdote. So you had named self-awareness, or not self-awareness, you named reframing as the first step. And now you're kind of suggesting that you may not want to come in with a bunch of questions that could continue to stimulate a kid. So what's the next step?
So then, because your stress level is lowered because you've reframed, you already kind of signal to the child that it's safe for her to be with you in that state. Okay. So you can go closer, and depending on the child and their, because you are the one who are their co-regulator, okay? So you have this relationship built with her during her whole life, that what helps her soothe. And so we have to imagine that we have to start to think that, okay, she's 5 years old, she has this language, she can tell me everything, but because she is in hyperarousal state, okay, let's go back how I was helping her when she was little, tiny. That helped her to soothe, and it could be like touching. It could be like using your voice, you can start even, I don't know, humming or like very quietly whispering in her, hey, mommy, I'm here with you, you know, or you can take her, you can even hold her. I don't know if she allows you to do that, but because you understand that there were stressors for her that triggered this response, you might even want her to take her in her lap, take her in your lap and just move a little away from a very loud space, because the space and the sounds in the shopping mall or in the restaurant is actually adding extra stress to the child. You know, she has to block these sounds. So you might remove her from the side, but not because you are punishing her or not because you are ashamed or something, but because you're aware that the quiet place with you as a safe person will help her nervous system to calm down, because the safety cues are sent to her limbic system. You know, there is no threat anymore. I'm here. I understand you. You know, like you can express what you want, and I understand what's too much for you to be in this restaurant. You know,
so
like
just as a quick little follow-up question, I know you're going to go through number 3, 4, 5, but I don't think kids had the same degree of stressors and then hence meltdowns like several generations ago. And there's also places on the planet where, you know, you don't see kids have these like meltdowns. Do you think that that's because generally our society has gotten to a place where children are in a constant state of over arousal and over stress just because of how much activity is happening, traffic, the pace of life, and then maybe the energy that a parent is giving off because of their chronic stress? Do you think that generally we've kind of developed a society that is not conducive for children to grow without getting over aroused?
That's true. I agree totally with you, because the urbanization, you know, there's so many stressors. You know, we often think that the stresses are like, you know, when the boss gets angry or when there is a deadline, and this is the stress. But these are tiny parts of the stressors. There are huge amounts of stresses that are hidden stresses that we even don't know that actually affect our neurophysiology. For example, the food we have, you know, like the processed foods that we eat, because our system, you know, was built to chew. For example, I'm going to take one example, but like, you know, the teeth are for us to chew. And when we chew, actually, you know, it kind of self-regulates us. You know, the carrot, the apple that we chew, that soothes our nervous system. But because there are different candies, sweeteners, you know, things that have too much fat, salt and sugar, it is a stressor for us. We shouldn't be afraid of this food because like my child can get obese or something like that, but we actually can see the effect of eating this food right away. So the child can drink a soda or something and just observe as a parent after hour and a half, after 2 hours, what is the reaction? Like, how does your child behave? What is their mood? What is their mood? Because they might get cranky and irritated and, oh, I don't want to do. But like, and we as parents kind of get very surprised. Like, why are you behaving like that? Because you wanted this chocolate and I bought it for you. And then she was happy. But after 2 hours, she's like, ugh. So to look at through self-reg lens, we understand that this chocolate or the soda is a stressor for our bodies.
Wow.
Because when the child is asking that she needs this, I want this, please buy it, the limbic system is talking that I don't have enough energy. I need quickly the energy. And so the child has already remembered that chocolate, when you eat chocolate, you suddenly have this surge of energy. But actually what happens, this limbic system, after, you know, several minutes, or it starts to actually signal, oh, in the blood sugar we have too much sugar, so we have to flush it away. So our bodies are starting to work and burn energy without us being aware of that. So that's why after 2 hours, we're, you know, like in a bad mood. But the point that we have so high mental, you know, like the explosion of mental health problems and so on, is that true? Like our nervous system is always in acceleration, you know, accelerated mode. It's always working. and we don't have space, we don't have time to restore. So that's the self-regulation. It's not only burning the energy to survive and to cope, but it's also to have the space to be in a state where we can rest after this demanding day or demanding episode, where we can rest so we can replenish the energy.
Yeah.
You know, or in the schools that like the breaks are smaller and smaller, you know, and child has to be and listen and write and do and think, you know, to be in this mode all the time, which needs so much glucose, and the concentration is the full body phenomenon according to Steve Porges, which means like when we are concentrated, like our pupils are changed, you know, my heart rate is different, I'm tense. When you can look at little kids, you know, they might change their, you know,
lips,
I don't know, gesture. Yeah, like different micro expressions are changing because it's full body experience. It needs too much energy to concentrate. So when they expend this energy, we have to give our children time to rest, to play, to have time for free play, you know, to sing a song, to listen to us when we tell the stories, to walk. You know, these are the restorative things. And then if the child has this, then the nervous system is imbalanced, you know, the homeostasis is there. So we go out, but we come back, we restore, you know.
So I'm so glad I asked that quick question, because I think you touched on such an important issue, which is nutrition, which doesn't get enough attention. And that's because there's big business lobbying for, you know, the food to continue being processed. But let's go back to those 5 steps. So we've covered the first 2. So let me just, reframing. And then number 2 as a title is what?
So I was trying to lead you, to guide you, like what you can do when the child is in meltdown. But like, if we go back to the self-reg, the 5 practices, the first one is the reframe one. The second one is to recognize the stresses, you know, what are the stressors? What burns energy from my child? What increases tension in my child? And it could be food. It could be these fluorescent lights that my child has in her bedroom, you know, which could be a stressor for the child that we're not aware of, you know, like the lack of movement, or, you know, like the way the day is scheduled, or so on. So they're different. There are 5, it's quite important. There are 5 domains of stresses. Biological, the main is food, movement, sleep. And there is emotion domain, where we have stresses, and it includes both positive and negative emotions. So positive emotions can also burn our energy and leave us kind of depleted. You know, when we make a surprise for the child, or when we tell that we're going somewhere that she wanted so much, this anticipation and waiting for this event, oh my goodness, this makes the child to burn a lot of energy. So being aware of this, I know that after letting her express her excitement, I will plan the evening in a calming, soothing way, so I don't add more stresses to her. And so the third one is the cognitive stressors, you know, like making decisions, starting to learn new language, or reading the book, you know, like tests and so on. The 4th domain is social domain, you know, how I can read like what your face is telling me, you know, like mind reading, and also to be aware what my body, what kind of effect it has on you. Okay. And so to change and adapt in the social environment. And the 5th one is the pro-social stresses. It's like how the stresses that what other people might think about us, you know, being late is a pro-social stress. So a kid coming late to the class is already stressed, actually. And when your child or someone, your family member, is not feeling okay, it's a stressor for you too, to stay calm when you see a dysregulated person. This is a stressor. So there are 5 domains, and we have to look carefully, and you can learn more on self-reg.ca. There are lists of so many stressors. The 3rd step is to reduce the stress. So in the moment, how we can lighten the stress load that the child or any person has, like this heavy backpack, how we take out some stones from this backpack so that the child is regulated, comes to that point where, okay, she can open her eyes and, like talk to you consciously or something like that. So we reduce the stresses in different ways. It can be even listening, listening. Empathic listening is a stress reduction strategy also, okay? Or we can, turn off the lights. I can change my voice, and this could lessen the stress load. The 4th step is the self-stress awareness, to help our children become aware when they get overstressed. Like, what is it when they are, what tells their body that they're overstressed? Like, I want to play this game. I want to play this game. This might be the sign for them. Okay, I'm overstressed. Actually, I'm too tired, or I'm hungry. That's why I'm talking like that. And to teach our kids to let them experience what calm feels like. Okay, so the step 4 is like to let our kids be focused and aware when they're calm. Like, what kind of feeling is that to be calm in your body, to be safe in your body? What are the things that our child enjoys to do? Because when we are calm, our nervous system is calmed, we are replenishing the energy, and we feel connected, and we feel like hopeful, or we learn something new. It's the growth promoting, state. And the 5th step is the restoration, like responding to the stress, because we know all this stuff. So we plan to incorporate in our everyday life the things, the activities that I enjoy for the purpose of enjoyment, not to achieve something, a goal. Okay, I'm going to say I will go to the swimming pool and I will swim, and I want to do like 5 laps. And, like you're at the 3rd lap. Like, this is the, again, the sympathetic nervous system, the accelerate, like you have to achieve the goal. You need this part of the brain to think and feel. But the another part is like, okay, I'm swimming, how do I feel? Like, what kind of, like, what is the water, like when water touches my skin, like, may I lay down on my back and just, be in the water and enjoy, without any agenda. Because these kind of states replenishes the energy. And so we as people and co-regulators should do both stuff. We should eliminate, reduce the stress load, but at the same time, give children opportunities to feel joy, like to engage in activities that they love without any, awards or something, Which
is why I think there's pendulum has swung so far by over agendizing children's lives. They go to school, then they do piano lessons, then they do gymnastics on the weekend, then they learn a 3rd language, and it's all sort of like with the best of intentions of helping them develop cognitively and then, get into Harvard and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But like, we're doing a disservice if we don't give them just time to hang out. It's happened where I've listened, if let's say I'm washing the dishes or cooking or whatever, like all of a sudden my daughter will enter some like fantasy life, and she's just like talking to herself or playing something. And I love those moments because she's, lost in her own imagination. And, you're saying children need more of that. I think what you've described really well is, co-regulating in the moment. But I also know that you believe that our responses to our children's behavior have an impact on their life trajectories, right? That it's not just in the moment, but it also has like big impact on the long term. So can you speak to that for a bit?
Yeah. So, for example, the way and it all comes to the reframing part,
Yeah.
Because if we see that our child is behaving on purpose, oh my goodness, like he is mean, or he is I don't know, not polite,
manipulative,
like giving all these labels, we actually send signals to this to the child, how we believe of them. And so they incorporate these expectations, these labels, and they are actually the first ones when they make mistakes, when because they're overstressed and nobody started to understand what was happening in their bodies and in the environment, they are the ones who actually start to punish their own selves, like to criticize their own self, to feel ashamed, to feel guilty about themselves. And like feeling ashamed of your own self is very, limiting, and it shrinks, it makes people shrink and be more quiet, or for some, they might become aggressive. The way the child will reveal, is different. But the basics is that either we help the child to reframe their own behaviors, to understand the science, how the brain and body works, what affects it, and how through self-awareness and self-regulation, he or she can change their own responses, or we can let children feel that there's something wrong with them, that they are needing some fixing or repairment, and so it also comes how we view children and how we view our roles, and there is
so it impacts their self-esteem, because if they're constantly being called out for what we perceive as bad behavior, when in fact it's their nervous system that's overwhelmed and their limbic system is responding, if we don't recognize that and adjust our behavior to help them cope, it's quite easy to, think of them as like nasty kids and then start getting into punitive kind of behaviors. And that exacerbates this feeling of the child that they're a bad kid. And I can imagine in schools, having teachers who understand that. It's also really, really crucial. So that speaks to that idea of parents also being chronically overwhelmed. I mean, let's just think about the last 18 months. Everybody who's lived through COVID, regardless of circumstance, of course, certain circumstances more than others, but everybody has been living with this like heightened state of stress because there's been so much uncertainty, and our natural rhythms have been impacted, right? Like the way we used to do things is not the way we do them anymore. And it's constantly changing with new information, and people are getting sick, and anxiety, and worrying about our kids and worrying about our grandparents. And so I think that there's like a general statement that needs to be made that part of being a parent that meets the needs of a child as they're growing up is that the less stress that we can have in our lives as parents, the better we will be as parents, right? Isn't that like a meta takeaway from this, that we have to find ways to recharge our batteries and find...
Definitely, because we're so interconnected. It's called the interbrain, how we, it's a wireless kind of connection between a parent, a caregiver, and a child. So as we talked a little about this, like the way I am, the state I am in affects the state my child will be or is, and vice versa. How my child feels and is affects me. So by taking care of ourselves, like doing self-reg, looking with soft eyes to our own misbehaviors or mistakes, and trying to understand why now, and trying to engage in activity every day for at least, let's start from 30 seconds or a minute, something like smell something, to turn off this system that always is about problem solving, and how to fix and like what to do, to turn it off for a while. Like, when you wash the dishes, like feel the water, what kind of smell it is, to rest the attention for a while. So we can have a little recharge. Because when we have slept well, when we're fed well, us as parents, like, you want to play with a child. Like, okay, let's do things. Let's do this. You are the initiator too, because you see how differently, how you want to build the relationships, how hopeful you are. So yeah, paying attention to our own well-being, doing 5 steps of self-reg actually will help us to help our children then.
I find all of the conversation around self-reg seems to be about having empathy for ourselves and empathy for others, because we're just recognizing the circumstances in which we might not be our best selves. That's sort of my kind of big takeaway. So I want to ask this question about why feeling safe neurobiologically is actually a precursor. It's imperative as a baseline for us to actually be empathic.
Yeah. Because feeling safe is number one. If we're not feeling safe, and it's not like, and safe is a relative concept, but neurobiologically, our nervous system, the neuroception that is operating, 24 hours for 7 days, is always trying to scan the environment. And whenever the environment gives the signals of threat, and it could be how my mom looks at me or is not looking at me when I did something. This could be a threat signal, that my mom is not watching me. Yeah. Or, so it's not about the words, it's about the energy, it's about the body language. And so when our brains detect the threat, the whole response in the body is changed. So we go into hypervigilant mode. So we become tensed. And if the other person is not engaging, for example, with us, like we'll send safety signals, then we either go to fight or flight mode. Okay. And so when we are in a fight or flight mode, we are trying to survive. The whole attention is about solving this problem for me to be safe in the end. And so I cannot think about another human being. I cannot listen to another human being because my pain is so big that I cannot understand it. I cannot feel it.
So next week, your episode is going to be out next week. And in North America, next week is return to school for a lot of parents. And I feel like there's an opportunity for you to maybe speak to what it's like my kid's going into kindergarten. That's a big shift, but every kid is going up a grade level. And the beginning of school is a change from summer back into like a routine. And there's demands of getting out the door faster and homework and all that stuff. What kind of self-reg advice can you offer to parents at this time of year as their kids are going back to school?
So first of all, we have to really understand that, like how you described, this transition is huge, because in so many, even in America, in North America, so many kids were not going to school because they were doing it online, and so there will be many stresses. And even though for some it will be positive, their energy will be depleted. And you might see the, meltdowns or changes in mood or anger or, different kinds of stuff that you were not seeing in your kids before. And like, they were so excited to go to the school, or some were not excited, but like always try to refrain, don't ever think that, because of this 18 months, something was lost in your child. Okay. So she needs more work to do, or because of this, oh my goodness, you have to go to school. So relearn because you were sitting in the school so well. Like, what is happening? Why don't you like it? Try to look beyond the behaviors, try to help them, let them feel that you understand them, that it is stressful to go back to a place where they're 20, 30 kids together, some will cry and some will play, and sharing the toys, or, like raising your hand is stressful. And also I would recommend to the teachers who might listen that, like, you also do not start with, the agenda that you have, that you planned, try to first build the relationship with the kids, send the safety signals, try to reframe their behaviors and always see it as regulatory, and how you can help them to regulate in a more healthy way, So it's all about relationships and sending the safety signals so we don't add more stresses to the kids' nervous system. And and to give the time to restore, and to have the faith that our children, they're doing their best, and they will have, they will have flourishing future. And this 18 months and this new academic year won't define, is not a defining year for them, what kind of human beings there will be. Okay, so we don't stress out because the child is kind of reluctant to do the homeworks or something like that, because we have to be more understanding and empathic.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Thank you so much, Nino, for all the time you've spent with us this morning. It was a great conversation. Like I said, that was a ton of learning. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your passion. And thank you for sharing all of your children's amazing artwork behind you. I've just been enthralled by all of the colors. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
Now, what if you had access to your own council of coaches to help you break free from your own thinking clutter, make that important decision, and liberate you from whatever is holding you back? At Grand Huron International, you get to select a coach of your choice anytime from anywhere. Visit grandhuroninternational.com and harness the power of on-demand coaching today.